want you to take a moment to think about the women that have inspired you in your life. I've always been surrounded by strong women. My mother and aunties are almost all under 5'3", but they have this quality where they seem larger than life because of the way they always stand up for themselves and their beliefs. We all get this from my granny, who we affectionately call Pufferfish, because she's absolutely tiny, but she's the most terrifying person to argue with. I was always raised to believe that I could be anything, and I never felt held back because of my gender. This is because of those great women I grew up around, and because of the activists that paved the way for my generation. And to them, I'm endlessly grateful. But I've heard a worrying comment lately. I've heard people who say, feminism was great, but we don't need it anymore. I think I find this so deeply upsetting because I know that a few years ago, I would have been one of the women saying this. You see, I've barely faced discrimination in my life, but I'm incredibly privileged. I'm a white, cis, middle-class woman, and this all shapes how the world views and treats me. The younger me thought that feminism had done its job when I didn't feel discriminated against based on my gender. But I now know that feminism can only have done its job when no woman is discriminated against for any reason. Between thinking that feminism had done its job and now, I learned of great women, inspirational women, like Marsha P. Johnson, a black trans woman who threw the first brick at Stonewall, Eva Gorbuth, who fought against the homophobia and classism in the suffrage movement, Helen Keller, who fought against ableism and the use of nuclear weapons, women who all highlight an incredibly important term, intersectionality. Intersectionality is the connected nature between all social categorizations, such as race, gender, sexuality, nationality, and so on and so forth. Intersectional activism is activism which acknowledges that most causes are intertwined. I only learned this word around a year ago, and unless you're involved in some movement or you took some obscure elective in college, the chances are you haven't heard it either. I think this is quite harmful because it leads to this idea that all movements are fighting against each other for attention, rather than fighting together towards a common goal. I believe we see another worrying side effect when certain people are excluded from feminism. Shamefully, trans women are often excluded from feminism by trans-exclusionary radical feminists or TERFs. The most recent example of this being J.K. Rowling's tweet and subsequent essay on why she doesn't view trans women as women. Not only is it ridiculous to exclude a woman from feminism simply because she was assigned male at birth, it is also almost comical that in 2020, there's women being discriminated against, and instead of standing with our sisters, we isolate them further. Feminism started as a movement for all women, but there's this cookie-cutter idea of what a feminist is that's perpetuated by pop culture. It's by no means a new phenomenon, but it's something I've only noticed recently. I believe it started when the only great women I learned about were women like Emmeline Pankhurst, white, wealthy, well-educated women who may have fought for women's rights, but fit society's standards in every other way. This is the acceptable face of feminism. At the start of this talk, I asked you to think about a woman who inspired you in your life. Now, I ask you to take your feminism a step further. I challenge you to find a woman unlike anyone you've ever known. Find her and be inspired by her story. Find her and vow to fight for trans women, women of colour, queer women, disabled women, women working in sweatshops, sex workers. Feminism started as a movement for all women. And it's our job to make sure it remains a movement for all women. Thank you.